Ram trucks, built to serve.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf, alongside Nick Wright, Kevin Wild, Brian Westbrook is there with us. It is Tuesday morning. We got a lot going on. Coming up in the NBA, Sixers making some big roster changes ahead of the NBA restart. We'll discuss, tell you what those are all about. Did Doc Rivers unintentionally reveal something about Kawhi's health? We will let you know what. And is Tom Brady better than Aaron Rodgers today? To be discussed. But our top story this morning, Dak Prescott and his Dallas Cowboys. Or are they? With tomorrow's franchise tag deadline looming, reports are there are no scheduled talks at this time between the two sides. And there is, quote, not a lot of optimism that a long-term deal will be reached between Dak and the Cowboys. All that being said, our friends over at Fox Bet still have the odds in favor of Dak and the Dallas Cowboys reaching an agreement. All right, Nick, let me ask you this. If you were Dak Prescott, what would you do?
I would wait another 8, 10, 12 hours, and then I would eagerly sign a contract that, aside from Patrick Mahomes' deal, would make me the highest paid player on a per-year basis in NFL history, would guarantee me the most money of any player in NFL history, and then I would call my agent and say, what a masterful job you did here. You moved the Overton window on my contract negotiations so far that folks now think $35 million and $110 million guaranteed is somehow a bargain, when these numbers were first floated a year ago by Jane Slater, I think. Most of us said there is no chance Dak Prescott thinks he's getting $35 to $40 million. At this point, if he were to sign that, folks would write columns saying what a good job the Cowboys did. So if I were Dak, I would be grateful that the conversation has moved as far as it has. I would agree. I would feel that I have wrung as much out of this negotiation as I could, and I would eagerly sign that deal. That's what I would do. That is somewhat of a risk-averse negotiation after he already was super risky last year, playing out the end of his rookie deal, Brian, with no guaranteed money moving into the future. But the fact that he was willing, Brian, to play out last year, to me, makes it much more likely that he's willing to play out this year at $31 million and become even closer to free agency and become only the third quarterback ever to play a season under the franchise tag, Brian.
Yeah, I agree with you. If I was Dak, and I understand how physically rigorous the NFL season is and how aggressive the hits are going to be, I would certainly wake up and sign that contract. I would wait until Wednesday, right before the deadline, and sign the contract. But I also got to imagine I'm a running back, and I think in the running backs terms. And if you're a quarterback and you're protected the way that quarterbacks are protected in the NFL today, and if you're Dak and you started 64 straight games and you bet on yourself, including last year, and you're the 135th pick overall, and you're saying, you know what, last year I put up great numbers, but this year I get a better and more offensively inclined coach in Mike McCarthy. I have better weapons in CD Lamb, and I get a hungry Zeke. And now I come back and I have the same type of stats, but I get more wins. We make the playoffs and potentially we make a run towards the Super Bowl. Now I'm more of a value. Now I have Mike McCarthy going into Jerry Jones's office and saying, listen, we have to have Dak under center. And if I'm Dak, I'm willing to roll the dice again. And that's the hard part. I think that's what Dak is going to be willing to do. I think it's a tough stance to take, but he's bet on himself his entire career. I don't see that changing at this point.
Yeah, I'd stick to my guns and make sure I got the 4-year deal that I wanted. They want 5 years. I would say I want 4 because I want that TV money coming. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of cloudy numbers. The best person who has kind of broken this down is Katie Drummond of USA Today and Cowboys Wire. And he made a parallel from the NFL salaries to the NBA when they got their new deal. So 5 years ago, Katie wrote, Kobe and Joe Johnson were 1 and 2 in the league. They were making about $23 million. Fast forward after these TV deals, Steph's making 40 and Chris Paul's making about 38. And the people that are making 23 are like Gallinari and Ibaka. So it's a world of difference. The salary cap is going to explode once these new deals are. The Facebook and Amazon and Netflix and Google are probably going to get into the game. There's going to be new products with the 17-game season, more playoffs, and the international games are not only about expanding the international base, but also getting that 9 a.m. window, Nick. And you're the gambler of the crew. I'm surprised you're taking the more conservative path here because there's more money on the table if he rolls the dice, Nick.
Because at some point you got to take your profits and get up. And all the negotiation right now, reportedly, is about a 4-year deal or a 5-year deal. If he were to if he were to sign right now today a 5-year deal, the deal the Cowboys have out there for him, that takes him through 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, the next 5 seasons. If he plays this year under the franchise tag and then signs a 4-year deal, that would take him through, because 20 would have been on the franchise tag, 21, 22, 23, 24. Either way, he's not going to be negotiating based on the next television deal until he gets to his next contract. And if we're going to talk about reasons the cap could skyrocket, everything that's going on in the world and the uncertainty surrounding it is a reason that in the short term, the cap could dip. But I want Cowboys fans to understand this. If this does not get done by tomorrow and he is going to play the year under the franchise tag, you have to start considering that he is not going to be there long term. There have been 2 quarterbacks ever to actually play under the franchise tag. Drew Brees, his final season in San Diego, because they had drafted Phillip Rivers and it was clear, writing on the wall, he's on his way out. And Kirk Cousins, 2 seasons in Washington, because clearly the coaching staff there, for good or for bad, didn't love him, didn't think he was ever going to be the guy. If Dak plays this year, Brian, under the franchise tag, and he rolled the dice last year, rolled it again this year, then he's going to be in a spot where he says, man, if I do it one more time, I hit true free agency. I'm better than Cousins, and he got a fully guaranteed deal when he hit full free agency. So that's the anxiety for Cowboys fans. It's not about this season. He's your quarterback this season no matter what. But if you play, the limited history we have says if a quarterback plays under a franchise tag, he's not long for the organization, Brian.
I kind of agree with you there. And here's a question for you, Nick. And I think if you're Dak, you have to be asking yourself this question. If I go out and put up the same numbers that I did last year and we win a playoff game or 2, will there be teams, just like the Minnesota Vikings were lining up to try to find a way to get Kirk Cousins, will there be teams trying to find a way to get me? And I think that if you put those numbers up, you win a couple of playoff games, I think that there will be a group of teams that are hunting for Dak Prescott, wanting to get him signed up. And because of that, that's maybe part of the reason that Dak is willing to roll the dice again. As a running back, I'm saying I'm taking my money, I want it off the table, and I want it in my pockets. As a quarterback in this protected league, I think that Dak has some leverage here. And I also think once he signed that franchise deal a couple months ago, or a month ago or so, he said, I'm willing to roll the dice, and no matter what they present, unless it's exactly what we want, I'm not signing it. And I don't see the Cowboys coming back to a 4-year deal.
And Brian, you allude to and flat out state some of the points of leverage for the Cowboys. And I understand that piece of it. And while I am if I were Dak, I would sign the deal. If I were Dak's agent, I would probably be presenting this to him. Listen, man, no matter what happens here, if you play this year under the franchise tag, it's the Cowboys who are in a bad spot. If you play, and this is what Cowboy fans also need to understand. If Dak plays this year under the franchise tag and you're awesome and you have a great year, then all that happened is his price skyrocketed. The only way, if Dak plays this year under the franchise tag, for Dak's price to go down is if he has a terrible season and therefore the team's not any good. So if you're a Cowboys fan, there is no good outcome that involves Dak with the franchise tag. Either you overstated his value, you're going to get him cheaper, but that's going to mean the first year under McCarthy ends up being, train goes off the tracks, or he was right about his value with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Zeke, that the team's awesome, they win 12 games, and then $35 million a year becomes $40 million a year. So like, for Wilds, while I'm advising Dak to sign the deal because I'm anxious on his behalf, I understand his negotiating leverage and I understand the Cowboys' necessity to get this done so they're not looking at two terrible options next season.
Yeah, the one thing I don't think we're talking about at all is how much money Dak can make by being a Cowboy. Like Tony Romo's making $18 million. Look, would Tony Romo's career have played out differently if he was with the Vikings? Probably.
Right.
Is his star as big if he's doesn't have the spotlight of Dallas? Probably. Peyton Manning is making $18 million a year. He never played for the Cowboys, but he's a huge star. I think Dak has another level of superstardom when you just look at, like, on paper, like, oh, let's go to the Vikings. I think that's a bad move for his career if he hits free agency and decides to leave.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think we talk about how maybe Dak wants to play out a year or two and then go see what's on the open market. What's the best market in the NFL? Where's the best opportunity to make the most money, the most storied franchise in NFL history? It is the Dallas Cowboys. If you are the face of the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, there's so much money coming in anyway. I think that's such a